Welcome back to Dear Rochester, Retire Well. Here's your host, Dave Paulsini, CFP.
All right, welcome back, folks, to Dear Rochester, Retire Well. Dave Paulsini here again with another great one. Connor Boyd, how are you, man?
I'm good, dude. I'm excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, why don't you tell everybody what you're up to recently, just because I think it really fits in with financial planning. There's some estate stuff going on. I'll let you explain it, but this is why I wanted to have you come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier this year, I got licensed as a real estate agent, and basically I was trying to figure out how I wanted to go about that business, because when you first get in, you're trying to figure out what kind of niche do you want to be focused on: buyers, sellers, whatnot. And so very shortly in, I started to find this niche, I guess you could call it, of probate. So I basically was looking into this space and educating myself, something I never heard of before.
Yeah, what's probate?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So probate is when someone passes away and leaves behind an estate, which is basically assets, whether it's personal property or real property.
Yep.
Probate is when the court appoints, if there's a will, they'll appoint an executor of who's the person that's going to be managing the estate. And if there's no will, then they're appointed as an administrator of the estate. And basically the court's appointing them to manage it on how to distribute the assets. So the will state how to do that. And if there is no will, then the state will, according to state law, distribute it that way. Yeah. So anyways, long story short, I found out, I was learning about this space, and a lot of times people inherit a property, and, it's a lot to deal with, because that's not just the only thing. It's one piece, but they're left with, a house full of contents, other bank accounts, what to do with everything. So anyways, yeah, I learned about this space in my small part, and that's kind of how I got introduced kind of to this field. That's a long answer.
No, it's good. Listen, it's funny. If you went to a party, do you know how to scare people away the fastest? You tell them you're a financial advisor or a realtor.
Because you're looked at, you're just coming in. Yeah. What do you want from me?
Yeah, it's like, what are you trying to sell me at my happy hour right now?
Yeah.
So there are realtors everywhere, just like financial advisors. Yeah. So you chose a niche, which obviously I think is very smart when you're starting a business. You're focusing on something. Also with the demographics currently is, and I keep saying this, like there are a ton of baby boomers, 10,000 people every single day are still turning age 65, which means 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, hopefully longer for most of the listeners out there, your property is going to go to somebody else or the beneficiary, right? So going through that probate process, you developed a niche. It's not like, by the way, representing buyers right now, it must just be a pure joy. I don't even know who would want to get into that. I don't want the realtors to be mad at me when they listen to this, but I can't even imagine.
That was kind of what I was thinking about when deciding which way to go in the business, because, if you're the buyer's agent, you're competing against, 10, 15, 20 people on a house.
Every single time. Yeah. And you're showing people 97 properties to maybe get one.
Yes.
Right? It's not like it used to be. So choosing a niche, super smart. Probate, I think in the long term, it's going to make sense. So I wanted you to share with the listeners like what you developed because of that, and then where you think it's headed.
So as of recently, I developed what I'm calling NYS, New York State Probate Leads, which is basically we're getting the contact information of these executors or administrators, and we are connecting them with real estate professionals who can help service them. And like I said, it's a very complex, it's a stressful time. Yep. And these are professionals that can connect with them and service them depending on what it is, whether, it's a realtor, an estate sale company, financial advisors, clean outs, whatever it is to help manage the estate.
Yep.
We're connecting those two parties together.
Okay. So do you have I mean, that's a good list right there. Do you have folks that are ideal to? So you're how would you say it? You're screening the leads, or you're getting folks that are trying to sell a property, maybe in the market to sell. Mm-hmm. So I would tell the listener to imagine this: your 93-year-old parent just passed away. They own a home. You don't want that house, right? Mm-hmm. And hopefully it's set up properly with the estate stuff, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You, Connor, are getting that information of that child, which is an adult child in that case, and
they use that terminology too.
Yeah, it's the legal stuff, right? So you're taking that, and then you're passing it off to potentially these other folks, which could be a financial advisor, which is very valuable to us to know who's going through that, and maybe we could bring a ton of value to those people. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned clean out services.
Yes,
you keep going with those. Like, what were those?
Clean out services. Yeah. Because you can imagine the contents of someone who's lived in a house for 30, 40 years, what's in there.
Yeah.
So clean out services, estate sale companies. So if there's items of value and the executor administrator is not going to, be going on Facebook Marketplace or, selling all of it themselves, that's where an estate sale comes in, helps you sell off and liquidate all of those assets. And then obviously realtors who can help sell the real property, potentially investors who maybe as an executor or administrator, maybe you just want it easy and just take a cash offer. So there's a lot of different professionals, assisted living facilities. Maybe there's a spouse remaining who's older who wants to, now that the spouse unfortunately passed away, they don't want to deal with the property anymore, and they might want to transition into something that doesn't require a lot of work to maintain the property. Mm-hmm. So that's another professional that could help. And yeah, I think that covers most of them.
So this is by county, it would have to be, right?
Yes.
So you go county by county, you get some records, and you have a system for doing that, which we will not disclose today. What about, like, if I'm just thinking, why not go like right to Florida or Arizona, where the average age is maybe much higher than Monroe County and Rochester? Maybe you could do that later, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, can I take that? I'll take the Florida probate leads. You got New York, I'll take Florida. I wanted to ask you, I have a list of stuff I want to ask you about this stuff, but for folks that have inherited a property, what's a big mistake that you're seeing that they might make right now?
So when you first get it, so a lot of people, like if my parents unfortunately were to, if they were to pass away, and before I got in this space, I wouldn't know what to do. Like, what's the next step?
Yep.
So like, if you didn't have any knowledge on what to do, like that's the first, so you want to educate yourself on this subject. So, when the time comes, you'll know what to do. So you don't want to procrastinate, because when the estate is, when you just leave it as is, there's still bills that are coming in, whether it's property taxes, utilities, the property might deteriorate, whatever. A lot of list of long things that keep going, if you don't deal with, will keep accruing.
Yeah.
So that's a mistake, is to get on it right away. You can connect with like an estate attorney to start the process right away. So having the will, having the death certificate, filing it with the court, getting that process started. So basically not procrastinating and just getting the process started right away would probably be the biggest mistake if you don't do that.
Yeah, I see folks with misinformation about cost basis issues. So my parents bought this house for $250. We can now sell it for $600. What do we owe in taxes? Right? Which I could go down that whole rabbit hole. We won't, because there's improvements and different ways for cost basis and step ups and all of that stuff. But so the biggest mistake is they don't follow or have a given process. So do you guys, so the New York State probate leads, what's the website for that?
Just nysprobateleads.com.
Okay. So you guys are getting the leads and then handing it off to other folks. Those folks should be the ones notifying the administrator or the executor of the process. So they might have to provide their own process. Like I'm just a checklist guy. Like systems processes. Like give me a checklist and we'll follow it. So Yeah, maybe as a value add, we'll provide a checklist to those people.
Yes.
So if someone's still around, so they're still alive, and I just said 93, so I'll stick with it. They're 93 years old. They're probably not listening to this podcast, so I can say whatever I want, right? How can they set themselves up now to help their beneficiaries make this smooth?
Yeah. So they would want to have a will that clearly, articulates who the beneficiary, who they're going to appoint as the executor,
Yep.
who the beneficiaries are, the percentages that are going and whatnot, have that clear. They would, and this is something you would know more about, they could avoid the probate process entirely if they have a trust in place.
Yep.
So that would probably be something I would recommend doing, even though that would defeat what I'm doing. But
you're gonna put yourself out of business by recommending.
But so there's that. And I would have all of the important legal everything in place, like the financial documents, the will, so that when the time comes, they're not, the executor, the administrator, the family members aren't searching the property trying to find, or might not find, where all these documents are, whether it's, bank accounts. Because I don't know if my parents, like I said, if this happened with them, I have no idea where they would keep. So this is something I should do myself.
Yeah.
With my, have everything organized in a place that they would be able to see.
We run into this all the time. And no matter how many times you tell people, get organized, get the stuff in one folder, one document, I don't know what it is, but it is really hard for most people to actually make that happen. And I have found when folks pass away, because unfortunately I've dealt with this a lot, the folks that we work with are typically prepared. We have everything on one page, and we could fit people with millions and millions of dollars. Little boxes. It's actually called an asset map. We had a different podcast on that way back when, but it's like stick figures of the husband and wife in this case. Mm-hmm. And then like his stuff's on the left, their insurances are above it, their joint accounts are below, along with their property and mortgages and other things. And at least it points them in the right direction. So I love that thing. A lot of financial advisors are like, man, that just looks like Mickey Mouse-ish or like simple, but that's what people need, right? Make it simple. And then when you get an asset map or you get your stuff in order, go see the estate planning attorney to actually put it in motion and make sure that it's taken care of. Otherwise, you got to make it simple for folks so they won't do it. But it is true, man. If your parents, if you don't know what would happen if your parents were to pass away right now, if you think you don't have time now, imagine when that happens, because then you're forced to deal with it. So I would tell anybody with parents out there that if they don't know that, force your parents to do. I don't care if you draw it yourself. Draw it on a white piece of computer paper and write down their stuff. Mm-hmm. Minimally get something going, right? I even have clients that are working on like their own death packets because they've dealt with somebody passing away, and they come to me and they're like, hey, could I sell this to other people? Because I know how painful it is to try to find all of the documents and find all of the stuff. So yeah, and it's also a big mistake, right? Big mistake is procrastinating and not having your stuff in order. So
exactly.
What's give me what do you do? So there's an executor. So parents have a house, 93 years old again. They have multiple kids. One is the executor. They are in charge. That is who you are finding, right? Then they have, let's say they have 4 brothers and sisters, whatever. Mm-hmm. They all are in on this, but there's one executor. So what do you guys, does it matter if there's a bunch, or like, how does the beneficiary stuff work if there's multiple beneficiaries, or is that after the fact for you guys?
No. So what we're doing with the NYS probate leads is, so the main point of contact for any professional is they'd want to contact the executor or the administrator, because they're going to be given the legal authority to deal with the estate. Yep. So that would be your main point of contact, who you'd want to reach.
Yep.
And that's called letters testamentary if it's an executor, which they're granted by the court, or letters of administration, which they're also granted, depending on whether there's a will or not. And then, so you would get a hold of the executor or administrator ideally. And what we provide is also, and in the courts, they provide the beneficiary's, name, address. So if you can't get a hold of the executor, we're also providing contact information for the other family members to get a hold of them in case, the phone number's wrong, whatnot. So, because maybe you don't get a hold of the executor, but you get the brother, and the brother can help you you can talk to him, and you can get the executor involved as well.
So I'm just thinking, like, if I'm listening to this, and I know this is going to happen with parents or whoever it could be aunts and uncles, it could be grandparents, right? It could be anybody. They're going to want to reach out to you directly because they're like, okay, this person can help. So if a listener, you are not the person that's putting all this together. You're not doing the estate, the clean out and the estate plan. Like, who do they start with? If a listener directly wants to reach out to somebody, do they reach out to a realtor? Do you, like, should they call an attorney? Where would they start? And then second, and I promised I wouldn't do this. By the way, man, I'm getting complaints on, like, you ask too many questions at once, but I can't help it. At least I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah.
So then who do you kind of already mentioned this, who you guys sell your leads to. But if I'm a listener and I'm going through this right now, like, where do you start?
Yeah. So, I mean, your estate attorney may be already connected with these various, depending on who your estate attorney is, and, depending on what you particularly need. If there's no real property involved, no real estate, then you're not going to need, the realtor or whatnot.
Right.
They could contact us. Me personally, I would be able to connect them with the various clients that we're going to be working with, or they would just know that these are the different services they need, whether, it's an estate sale, clean out. You'd look those companies up and then reach out to them. I would recommend, if you do it that way, get multiple opinions, price points from these different professionals, and go that way. So there's a couple different paths.
I feel like I'd start with an attorney and a financial person. I have to say that, though, right? And then listen, for larger sales, and not that smaller ones don't matter, but especially for larger sales, like, get a CPA involved as well, right? Like, how do we decrease taxes owed and some other things? So so you are providing leads. Let's go back to the realtors. You're getting realtors leads in Wayne County, and they get, I don't know. Hey, actually, how many leads a month can you provide?
So Monroe County has around 100 that I'm seeing right now for this particular month. I haven't tracked the data for the rest of the year or years previous, but for this previous month, 100.
Yep.
Next would be Ontario County, which includes, Canandaigua, all of those areas around there, Victor. That would be second in the surrounding area, probably with the most. That there's probably 15 to 30, I would say. Okay. And then Wayne is smaller than that, maybe 5, 10 throughout the whole month. So I'd kind of say around those numbers. Yeah. Ontario might be a little higher, maybe 40, 50.
But if you're, so if you're, I buy your leads from Wayne County, you get all 5 to 10 of those leads every single month. That is very, people can do a lot with that. I mean, if you're a realtor and you have 5 or 10 people that need to sell a home, why wouldn't they do that? So let's jump into, again, back to, like, the listener side. What value does the realtor provide there? Like, what can they take off of somebody's hands?
So you'd want to work with a realtor who has these connections already in place. Yep. So the value add is a realtor that has the connection with the estate sale company, with the clean out, so they can just call, get them over to see it, and get that process started. If it was a realtor who didn't know any of these various parties, he'd have to piece it all together for you, and it just wouldn't be as smooth. Whereas the realtor who's already worked with these professionals, trusts them, knows they do a good job, they would be able to provide more value overall.
It makes sense. So what, Monroe County, you get 100 leads in a month. How old are they? I mean, not the people, like, are these people that passed away, like, yesterday? Like, how soon do you get them afterwards? They're not like 4 years ago, right?
No. So that's kind of what also separates us apart, is whereas there's a few national probate lead companies, and they give their lists out monthly. So it could be earlier this month, July 5th, a file came in, but they're not giving it to you till the end of the month. Whereas what we're doing is we're trying to provide it on a daily basis. So to answer your question, the file, you would be able to get access to this information almost in live time, like once it's filed with the court. Now, the when the person passed away, that varies. Usually it's a month, 2 months prior. That's typical. Yep. And then they eventually got around to filing and starting this whole process. But you will see some occasionally, it's been a year, 2 years before they initiated it. For whatever reason, they're starting much later down the line.
Well, it also means they probably haven't sold the property yet.
Yes.
So,
and maybe they're looking to do so now, and that's why, they're initiating the process now.
All right, man. So I sign up for New York State probate leads. I am reaching out to folks who are the executors of an estate. I'm a financial advisor. What do I say without sounding creepy?
Yeah. I mean, you would just come from the intention of asking, whether they need help. Well, first off, some of them you would see whether there's personal property or real property, which is the real estate. Yep. If they haven't liquidated anything yet, then obviously there's nothing to do yet. But I would approach it with, hi, I noticed that, I'm David Polsini, whoever it is, whatever the advisor. I noticed you are appointed the executor or administrator of the estate of so-and-so. And I'm just reaching out to see from a financial advisor perspective, what you guys plan to do with the proceeds of the estate. Do you plan on, I'm not an expert in financial advising, but maybe.
I thought I'd put you on the spot with this. You got to call us a financial advisor right now.
And, do you guys have plans on putting that money anywhere? Are you just keeping it in a bank account? Are you going to invest that with an advisor? So I'd kind of come from that angle of just reaching out to see if you could provide value in any way, and if you're a good fit, and if so, then beautiful.
Yeah, I mean it's a money in motion event or a catalyst. We have a different. There's a company that we had on called Wealth Feed, and one of the catalyst events is inheritance. It's not the same thing that you're doing, but it's an inheritance event. So we've got a process kind of nailed where we would send a card with our logo on it and a QR code, and it's a handwritten note, and it's real. It's really written with a pen. And then we follow up with a call, and it's just pure value add along with a video to those folks because they're dealing with enough, right? Like, hey, we're going to shoot you a quick email. It's got this video on it on how, in this case, I would make a different video on this is what you do with some laws in real estate or how we handle proceeds from this or potentially and how it might fit into your own financial plan for those folks. So this system that you have for a financial advisor it's extremely valuable because if we work with a few clients, and the clients can know this, like they are in a tremendous time of need, we can add a ton of value. It is not uncommon if I meet with these folks that we can save them. I mean, just tax-wise, it's not always investments. Tax-wise, save them $50,000 to $250,000 in taxes because they didn't know the rules, right? And most people that this happens to, they don't reach out to a CPA right away and say, hey, how can I tax plan for the next 5 years? It doesn't happen. Good financial advisors will do that. So you can help them tax-wise. And then most people go right to the investments, right? Like, are you going to get a better rate of return? I mean, that's important, I guess. We just had John Harms on. He's our chief investment officer. Like he may argue with me all day about that, where I would argue the estate planning properly and the tax planning properly adds a ton of value. And by the way, when this happens to folks, they now have property or more money or new bank accounts or other things that they need to go do their own estate planning for. So 93-year-old passes it on to a 65-year-old. 65-year-old better get to an estate planning attorney for themselves right away, right? So, you guys, you're kind of doing the, it sounds bad, but the dirty work. You're finding the info, you're providing it to people. You guys charge monthly or yearly for that, which they can visit your website to figure that stuff out and talk to you guys directly. I'm not the sales guy for that, but
that was clear. That was good.
That was very clear. Yeah, I'm definitely not, and compliance will come after me. My man Rick's listening to this right now. So you guys provide all that, and that's just from the financial advisor side. So you've created a network of all of those other folks. Financial advisory subscription, like that makes a lot of sense. and those folks are not getting help. So if I'm an advisor out there, like I mean, I'll talk to you after this about certain counties. I only want to work with certain counties. Definitely Wayne County. But who would you want to reach out to you right now? And then how many can you take? If I'm a realtor in Monroe County and I want to call you, what if 30 of them reach out to you? Can you only take one?
Yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about like the last couple of weeks. And my conclusion that I've come to so far is I want to cap it so that that's not the case, because I think it would defeat the purpose if 30 realtors were calling. Whereas if I capped it at, let's say, 2, then those are the only 2 calling. And I don't want to just churn and burn with my clients, which would be these professionals. I'd rather have a long-term relationship that we build up, and then they're the ones that are going after. So that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. We have a program in financial planning. It's called, it's a big list generating system called Smart Asset. And Smart Asset puts out a ton of good content. People click on it, they put their name in. And what they do is they'll give that name out to 3 or 4 local financial advisors that subscribe to their program.
Exactly.
And it's expensive. It could be thousands of dollars per month. But the other thing they offer is exclusivity. If you just want to pay for the whole thing, we'll give them to you all. But you're paying 3 to 4 times the cost. But no one else is calling. So that's kind of interesting too. So how do folks find you?
Yeah, so they can call me directly if they want. My phone number would be 585-880-8244. Or they could email me. It would be my name, Connor Boyd, at nysprobateleads.com. Those would probably be the 2 best methods.
What social media stuff do you have?
Just
I want to find you on there.
Yeah. So I have my personal. You just type in my name, Connor Boyd. I'll come up on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And then I have the business accounts as well. Same, NYS Probate Leads, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
How do you spell Connor?
Connor.
All right. So folks, get a hold of Connor if you're in any of those niches that he's working with. I think this is going to be very valuable. I think this is going to take off. That's why I wanted to have you on. I think it adds a tremendous value to a lot of people. And before I say make it a great day, when's your next fight?
We'll see. If this gets in, I can get a little more free time to myself. I'll start training again.
I love it. Folks, Google Connor Boyd and fighting first, and then nysprobateleads.com. But Connor, thanks, man, for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Make it a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. Information here is provided, in part, by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither 6 Point Financial Partners, Private Client Services, nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of 6 Point Financial Partners. They do not necessarily represent those of Private Client Services, RFG Advisory, their employees, or their clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by 6 Point Financial Partners or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, LLC, RFG Advisory, or RFG, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, 6 Point Financial Partners, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.